This is the Reconstructed Man Podcast, and I am your host, Layne Ingram. The Reconstructed Man Podcast is a place where we explore the transgender experience by sharing our stories and lifting up the voices of others. It's for everybody, trans, cis, and everywhere in between. This show is about building community and connections, and I am so glad that you're all here. My guest today is Micah Porter. He's a native of Michigan. He's worked in public education for 3 decades in Denver. As a teacher, a coach, an advocate, and an administrator. Mike is currently the associate principal at Warren Tech North in Jeffco Public Schools. He's also a leader, a consultant, an advocate in the LGBTQ+ community. He focuses his efforts on building greater inclusion for the LGBTQ+ teen and youth athletes. Having worked with a number of national advocacy groups like You Can Play, the Sports Equality Foundation, Sports Leadership Diversity Council, and Teams for Inclusive Athletics, Micah has been a committed spokesperson in the LGBTQ+ sports movement. He is also a fierce ally for the trans community, and he's going to talk to us about this really cool athletics team toolkit. You'll learn more about Micah's story and his work. You can find him at micahporter.com and on his social media. But Micah, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. How are you?
Man, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy to see you. Sweet shirt. Where'd you get that?
Target, all the corporations are getting on board. Target's kind of been at the forefront for years, but I shop there regularly and I saw it and I was like, that's mine. I'm grabbing that.
Target comes through for me sometimes, for real. Like,
That's
they have like these Goodfellow khakis. Every now and then I'm in a bind. They're like $21.99 in every color. Now that I've been on T, like I'm like wearing skinny khakis now. So it's perfect.
Yeah, like as an educator, you want to look nice, but you also got to kind of get down and dirty sometimes. So Target's they do it right.
They do. So I just read that amazing intro. You've done a lot of stuff and I appreciate it. But why don't you tell the people, like, who are you? Where are you from? I said Michigan. I'm from Michigan, obviously, go blue, right? But like, where in Michigan? Where are you from? And like, what part of the alphabet are you, sir?
Yes, so I grew up down here, down in the southern Michigan, small town, Stockbridge, real rural, one blinking red light community. I went to Hillsdale College and ran track there. I had a brother that went to Michigan State, and 2 sisters that went to Hope and played basketball at Hope College. So family still, a lot of my family's still in Michigan. Where siblings are kind of spread out all over, but yeah, I grew up in that part of the state and ended up right out of college, got a job here in Denver, packed up my Ford Ranger, and I've been out here for 25 years now. So, but
that's
unreal. I kind of always consider myself, Michigander.
Okay, so hold on. You just said you went to Hillsdale and both your sisters went to Hope?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, for people I'm from Michigan, so I kind of know what that means. Mm-hmm. I mean, tell people what kind of colleges Hope and Hillsdale are.
Yeah, so, I would say we both, well, my 2 sisters and myself, we chose those colleges because we were athletes and had an opportunity to compete. Mm-hmm. I was oblivious in many ways to the political sort of leanings of Hillsdale in particular. Hillsdale is super conservative. They don't take any federal money. They have anti-LGBT policies in their student handbook. It was not the best choice for a young man trying to figure himself out as an athlete from a small town, but I honestly didn't know better. Mm-hmm. In retrospect, I think it actually has helped. It's helped me with a lens of what folks and individuals from that side of the political spectrum have to deal with, what they're exposed to. The dean of the college was a frat friend of mine now. We're frat brothers, and I've had conversations with him about how things need to change. And so there's been there's been some silver linings to having that background of being in those, far right circles for, the early part of my life. Um, and it's given me again, that perspective of how I might be able to, have the conversations across the aisle.
Absolutely. I mean, you make a good point. Being a grown up and and having things affect me and really understand. Like I had no idea about Hillsdale or Hope. I mean, my
Right.
best friend from middle school and high school went to Hope, and I just was like, cool. Like,
Yeah.
awesome. You're going to college.
That's
I'm going to
one.
Michigan.
Yeah.
Right. My uncle played basketball at Hillsdale. And I was like, my uncle played there. I don't know. Right.
Right.
And so I love that you look at it that way and take those opportunities to, hopefully educate people, raise awareness,
Yeah, I've never been somebody that just wants to turn away from those who really need to be, part of the conversation. And if you can extend an olive branch and build those relationships, you might make small inroads in that culture change. And that's really, as an educator, that's always been my approach.
See, you're going to make us skip ahead to something I want to talk about because I think just the fact that you said that, right? Like we all should strive to do that. We all should strive to, have those conversations in spaces where we can, right? But
Yeah.
don't you think you have a bit more of a platform or a voice or an opportunity just based on the way you look right now?
Yeah, I'm a cis acting white male. Um, I'm the G on the alphabet. Um, but yeah, it does give me the opportunity to have conversations with communities that may have not been exposed to the LGBTQ plus community. And, I don't look like an outsider. I mean, I really went from one privileged group when I was closeted to I would say, even a more privileged group inside the LGBTQ community. I mean, white gay men are as privileged in our community as they are outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think recognizing that and using that as part of my voice, it's taken me a while to really figure out how to leverage it, but it definitely can make a difference, particularly with sports.
I've been on, before we jump to sports, I've been in like a few conversations where, you know, I don't know what the right word is, but there's like infighting amongst our community, or they're saying, like we
Sure.
need, people aren't supporting each other. Like, do you get that sense? I mean, I feel for me, having the way that my life went, right? Like before I knew I was trans, I was with women, so I had to be classified as, gay. And so if you know me well, I don't do good with that part of saying that. But anyway, so I just feel like we all have to support each other, and I don't understand why, lesbian women would be upset with trans women. Like we can't afford to do that, And so I wonder, have you heard that, felt that? Like, do we have fights in our groups?
I spend most of the time I spend with the LGBTQ plus community is with teens and youth. I really am not out in I don't want to say the scene. I don't know if that's the right,
Right.
phrase or whatever, but I have had lots of conversations with other advocates about, if we're gonna ask our straight and non-LGBTQ friends to accept differences, we also have to do that with our own community. We're
Mm-hmm.
all different. That's hence the alphabet, right? I mean, it's complex and it's growing.
Yeah.
And so for us to really be exclusive in our community, and I think it really does come from white men in a lot of cases. Um, I think that's just part of the evolution of where we are. I mean, things have changed rapidly over the last decade, and we're figuring it out. And I do have faith that we'll figure it out in a good way as opposed to a divisive way. I really do.
I think so too. I mean, one of the things I had to get over was when I really did start to present, like my wife and I would walk around and we just look like an interracial straight couple.
Right.
And, obviously when you're transitioning, you're trying to get to a point, but like you don't want to be hidden, you know? And
Mhm.
so I think we all have a balance in that. I wonder what your perspective is. Interesting. So, okay,
Yeah.
tell me about your work. Let's talk about the youth, right? Because that's what you're passionate about. And honestly, the reason why Daniel and I, he's one of my best friends. The reason why we started this show last season was I told him, I said, if one kid listens and decides that they're going to be okay, or, finds or hears something that says that they're not weird or they're not wrong, like, then it's worth it. So tell me about your work and what you're passionate about and what you're doing.
So just real briefly, I came out later in life. I was 38, and it was really the first time I had experienced any sort of discrimination, and told I couldn't go in the locker room, and had, you know, parents pulling kids out of my classes. I taught religion, ironically. And, I was coaching, I was at a very conservative high school. So I went from Hillsdale to this really conservative high school in Denver. And so it really opened my eyes. I mean, I was struggling, and I was a successful functioning adult in the middle of my career, and I was struggling with depression. I went
Mm-hmm.
through periods of addiction. It was just, my life felt like it was imploding. And I had a moment where I realized as if I'm struggling with my own identity and really my own mental health, and being confident about who I am, imagine what kids are going through. And so there really was a shift for me in terms of where I wanted to spend my focus outside of my own individual health. And it seemed to make the most sense. I worked with kids as a teacher and coach. And so in shifting that energy into advocacy and leveraging my position and my experiences to work with kids, that's really what I focused on the last 10 years. And like you said, one kid, you help one kid, it's worth it.
It's
And
worth it.
I've been very, very fortunate to just, I know I've changed the lives and helped guide lots of kids in our community, whether they're out or closeted. Um, they're some of my closest friends, and it really, it gives not only me self-worth, but it also, I know it's changing the lives of kids with just those interactions that I'm able to have every day.
I mean, that's kind of a dream of mine for this area that I'm in. You know what I mean? And so I just wonder, what's the, once you got started, or once started working with some kids, like, what was like, how were their parents with, what's the balance? Like, do you have support? I'm sure you have supportive parents. I'm sure you have parents that don't know, kids that have confided in you. Like, tell me,
Right.
what's it like, managing that?
It really, it's kind of just about being visible and just making myself, I put myself out there as a proud member of the community. And, kids came and either privately had conversations with me, or, they would reach out and say, I'm having a problem with this teacher, or I want to join this team, or, I go to church I'm dragged to church every Sunday, and I really don't know how, I'm supposed to, engage with that. So I'm not a counselor. I don't have that background, but, I'm an educator and I've worked with youth for a long time. So I think it's just having for those youth and teens, it's just having a healthy, functioning adult that's in
Mhm.
their lives in some fashion that they can just interact with and see on a daily basis. And then I try to use a lot of my social media for kids to reach out. I get lots of kids from all over the country that comment and message me, and just try to use a variety of different platforms to give a space for kids to reach out and say, I need to talk about this, or what should I do about this? And I always try to gear it towards education.
Mhm.
um, I really am not going to get too personal with kids. That's not really appropriate, considering that I'm not a counselor or a psychologist. But again, it's just having a trusted adult in their life.
Yeah. I mean, kids need an anchor,
Right.
like, if, especially, they don't have support, or if, they don't know what to say. I mean, I think about how I was, you don't know how to say, how to make these words
No,
form,
well, look, yeah.
yeah, you don't know how to do it. And I mean, I love that you're that for them. So you said you came out at 38. Wow. That's a lot of life.
Yeah,
Um,
second life,
and
a lot of
yeah,
ways.
that's a lot of life. I mean, because I came out the first time probably when I was maybe 21, right? And then I came out as trans when I was 36. And even living my life the way I was before, which was fine, okay,
Right.
not right, but like I have so much like regret and like pain about not realizing and knowing, and so I'm wondering what was it like to come out at 38? It had to be liberating on one hand, but also like tell me about it. What was it like?
Yeah, it it really it was not easy. I had built a life, and family and friends that I know me transitioning out of that life was really, really painful. And I knew that it was going to be, but I also knew that for my own mental health and my own, you know, just interpersonal growth, I was spiraling. I was spiraling in a whole number of ways. And I just made the decision that I needed to do this. And, I even, I don't know if you know this, but I signed up for adult conversion therapy.
Oh,
I went through that, and that was just
did you
horrific.
really?
Yeah, I just didn't want to be gay. I didn't.
Right.
And, I had really gone so deep in the closet with everything, from sports to my job to family, that I thought, well, if I can fix this part of me, then I don't need to fear hurting people. And we all know that that's just, it
Hmm.
was more painful to go through that. So, I made the decision. It was a very difficult process coming out, and I really started a whole new life. And um, it's taken a while to get to where I am, to kind of rebuild my relationships. I got a wonderful partner of 10 years. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. I met him right
Wow.
after I came out. And so it's been a long process, but um, I think that also helps me give people, hope and guidance, and, kids that are stuck in really painful situations. I understand it. And I'm able to talk them through it, and, give them some level of advice based on my own personal experiences. So here I am,
Here you are. Here you are and wonderful. I mean, we talk about this, right? We're saying, you know, 10, 12 years ago, that's not too much time, and it's just I can hear the pain still in your voice, and it's a pain that people that are outside of the community don't know.
Yeah.
You can't understand it because it's just about you being you, like you, just you, like I mean, you didn't ask for this, and
Well,
it's
I also
incredible.
think, Layne, that's part of the reason why I've tried to be such a fierce ally for trans youth, because again, I mentioned I was part of the privileged part of both communities. And just I see what our non-binary and our trans youth struggle with on a daily basis. And I want to just hug them and be there for them, and, let them know that it'll be okay, and that they deserve to be who they are and to
Right.
love themselves in the way that they are. So,
Will
um,
it be okay though? Like, let's talk about that
yeah,
because we've got all of this anti-trans legislation going around. I mean, and it just and so I say, will it be okay? I was on the news. Our local news said,
yeah.
will you come on and talk about the bill they have in Michigan? And it's a ridiculous bill. It's a ridiculous bill, like all of them. And I wonder what you think about that as a sports, LGBTQ plus sports advocate. What do you think about these anti-trans legislations?
They're horrible. I mean, they're clearly a result of politicians who've chosen a culture war. And, trans athletes have competed at all levels for decades, and they have seen an opening within high school athletics, and they have gone for it. And it's so damaging, not only to the kids' emotional and really physical well-being. I do believe that those that are, fighting for anti-trans legislation will be marginalized over. I think they were emboldened by the last 4 years, and I think that it'll take time, but we just have to keep fighting. I would like to see bold leadership from the National Federation of High Schools step in, just like the NCAA, just like the IOC has done, and make some decisions that would impact all state associations. Because when you leave it up to these individual states, clearly, the red states are going to, jump on these bandwagons, and kids are going to suffer.
Exactly.
So, I'm really active in making calls and emails and reaching out to friends in the states where these trans bills are at least on the table. Some of them have passed. We saw that one in Florida just passed.
Yeah. I
Um,
can't really
we're
wrap my head around
Colorado.
it.
Yeah.
It's like and I think you're right. I think it's a result of, the last 4 years. I think it's people feeling emboldened to, just be outright transphobic and show their hate. But I think it's also ignorance and fear.
Yep.
And I have you seen Disclosure? Did you watch Disclosure?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this part in Disclosure, where they were talking, one of the actors was talking about when she came out to one of her friends, and her friend said, "You mean like, shoot, what's the bad guy's name in Silence of the Lambs? Buffalo
Oh,
Bill,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Buffalo
Yeah.
Bill." She
And
said,
no,
"You mean she means like Buffalo Bill, or whatever? He's the
and
cross dresser guy, but he's the guy that he was going after."
yeah.
And she's like, "No, not the same." And so I think there's people who are ignorant, and then this talk glorifies it, right? Because all they want to do is say you can't have biological males. Well, that's not what we're talking about, because that's not what trans women are.
Right.
And I don't understand. I just can't wrap my head around why somebody with a platform won't say, here's the science. The Olympics have done it. The NCAA has done it. In my state, we looked it up. There's been 10 trans athletes use or play sports in Michigan out of 180,000 annually. There's been 10 in the last 5 years.
Yeah. And I think really, high school sports are about participation, and
Thank
they're
you.
about, kids having opportunities to grow as young people and have healthy
Yeah.
relationships. It's not always about winning. And even the science there doesn't show that there's any impact on outcomes. So, I
But
think I do have lots of friends from the other side of the aisle, and they are friends who reach out to me and they say, Micah, tell me about this, talk to me about this. And we have offline conversations, and sometimes they're successful. Sometimes, they're really stubborn about their position. But I think just continuing to have those conversations in respectful and open ways is really how we're going to change the hearts and minds of people, because the kids' lives are at stake here. I really believe that.
100%. I mean, and obviously the other thing is, if it's about moving on, and playing in college and having that opportunity that both you and I had,
Yeah.
you got to be pretty special.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to put in the time and the work. Nobody can take that from you. If you're good enough, a coach will want you. And that's the bottom line of the story. You know how I know that? Because I got recruited. You know how you know that? Because you got recruited. That's it.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
That's right. It's numbers.
That is what it is. What are you doing out there on the field? Well, you want to look at this trans girl? Why don't you do what you're supposed to do? Is how
Right.
I get a little hot about it. Okay, so it's Pride Month. It's Pride
Yeah.
Month. Like Pride, you're on my Pride episode. I love Pride, and I think I don't know what it is. Something about this year's just got me feeling good. Like it feels like there's so many of us everywhere, like
Yeah.
doing stuff. And I think, part of it's the anti-trans legislation, but people are doing great work. So it's Pride Month. What do you do for Pride Month? I mean, we're in a pandemic, but like, how do you feel Pride Month?
Yeah. Pride Month, it's sort of, it's been something that's I consider pretty new for me. My first Pride that I actually went and experienced was just 4 years ago.
Wow.
Uh, and
Did you like it?
Denver, oh my gosh, it was so much fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
Denver does a really good job, though it's muted this year. They're not going to have the, the parade. I usually participate with You Can Play, and they
Oh,
do a big float in the parade.
awesome.
Looking at having an event downtown here in Denver. Two of the founders are here in Denver, and I do a lot of work for You Can Play. I've taken advantage of the pandemic and gotten back into running. My old body is kind of healed from all of those years of competing. So I'm gonna do they're doing a Pride 5K that I haven't done a race in years. So I'm gonna sign up for that and go out and race. But I try to be really visible again on social media, and school's out now, so there isn't a whole lot I can do on campus. But it's just really being active and supporting the community, um, and buying shirts at Target.
Right? It makes me feel good. It we understand the reason why we have a Pride Month, right? But the way I'm looking at it this year is like, let's actually celebrate. I mean, for some reason, I am just really proud to be me this year. And I am just so proud of like you. I'm proud to know you. And I'm proud of Chris Mosier. And I'm proud of Kai Shepley. And I'm proud, you know what I mean? Like, I'm proud of us. And, there was a story. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the story out of Texas about the bakery? Did you see this?
No,
Okay. So this bakery made these rainbow cookies and they did a Facebook post and they said, Happy Pride Month, more love, less hate. We did these Pride cookies for anybody that wants them, right? Happy Pride. So then the next day they write a post and they're like, our heart is so heavy. We've lost a number of followers. We received a really hateful message, and somebody just canceled a very large order that we just finished frosting of 5 dozen cookies. And we're really sad that all we tried to do was promote more love and less hate. And instead, this is what we got. Somebody took a picture at noon that day. There was a line wrapped around the corner. 2 hours later, they posted a picture of their empty shelves and said, You guys are the best. We're sold out. Come back tomorrow for more rainbow cookies. And I was like, I love us because we got power.
show up.
I
That's
loved it.
I mean, that's where the hate just needs to be marginalized. It needs to be
You know,
pushed aside. It's always going to be there. I mean, it will be there. We just keep fighting against it. But that's awesome.
yeah,
That's
no, I love
beautiful.
that. That's a
I
pride
want to
story
try.
for me. I love that. I'm gonna get a rainbow cookie.
Yeah,
So let me ask you one more thing.
yeah,
What do you think? I'm just thinking about your shirt again. I'm thinking about you being a white guy. I'm thinking about your privilege. I'm thinking about our community, right? Like, what do you think is the best way that you can be an ally? Or like, you know what I mean? You know a lot of white guys. I know a lot of white guys too, but like, a lot of far right people. I don't, right? Like, what what is their main, what I'm gonna switch questions now.
yeah.
What's what's their main issue? Like they just don't get it?
I think it is fear and just a lack of education, and the they don't have relationships. They really don't have, a lot of individuals who don't understand the trans community. They live in a bubble, and they don't have relationships with individuals that either are allies or part of the community. And once they do, it changes. I mean, I'm coming back to Michigan, hopefully in like 3 weeks, to go to my high school 30th reunion.
Wow.
And it's going to be out at a lake somewhere, and there's going to be the, the rural community that I grew up with, that I know, that I'm lots of friends with on social media. But I'm looking at it as an opportunity to engage and with in conversations. I'm lucky to be an educator, and I can do things like I've got a little pronoun pin that I wear,
Mm-hmm.
on my lapel, or I have all my teachers put their pronouns on their board. All those things are disarming to kids, and they know they're in a safe space, and get the conversation going. So, for me, it's just being visible, and if I hear something or see something, I address it. And I'm not a angry person,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll call somebody out. I'll say, well, what did you mean by that? Why did you say that? We
That's
need to
important.
talk about this. So
That's important.
yeah, I think it's just visibility and having those conversations with people who just are either afraid of, they're a lot of it is peer pressure. They're just afraid of their own community calling them out. Um, they're, the far right or the conservative community calling them out.
Right.
Um, so I think it'll happen. It'll happen.
So going back to Stockbridge, eh? So 3 years ago, all right, I came out as trans in 2017, and that next year was my 20-year high school reunion, 2018.
Um,
And I was like, F it, man, I'm going. And I had myself a little fuzz and all that going, and I had um and it was amazing. And it was amazing. But I think part of it, and I hope this for you too, when you're actually who you're supposed to be, it's just so much easier to walk in with your head held up high and your chest poked out, you
yeah.
know?
Well, and I mean, yeah, I'm happy. I'm successful.
Exactly.
I'm excited to see my friends from high school, and I'm proud.
Yep.
And we're gonna see that.
Very good. Well, you know what? I just appreciate the work you're doing so much, and if there's anything that I can ever do, like you need only ask me.
I got your number.
Um, you got my number.
I won't hound you, but I will. I will.
If you need me, you just say. That's it. So, Micah, people can learn more about you at micahporter.com, right?
Yep.
They can learn more about your work that you do to protect and support and advocate for our youth. I want to thank you so much for being on my show, my man. You're the best. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Now, I need something from all my friends out there. I need you to subscribe on YouTube. I need you to like it. I need you to rate it. I need you to share it. If you're in a good mood, right? Like me on Facebook, The Reconstructed Man. Follow the podcast on Twitter. Or you can follow me. I'm kind of funny at The Right Layne. Now, keep doing you because nobody can do you better than you can. I'm Layne Ingram, and this is The Reconstructed Man podcast. Peace out.